morning, everyone. I'm Michael Voss, the publisher of Stanford Social Innovation Review, and I'd like to join our other speakers in welcoming you and thanking you for attending the 2020 Next Impact Conference. I'd also like to take a moment to thank President Kim, Professor Shin, and all the faculty and staff of Hanyang University and the Social Innovation Center for organizing this gathering. Even though I can't be with you in person, I'm glad that I can join you virtually to be part of this distinguished community of interest. These days, it may seem challenging to even envision what a better future might look like. Many parts of the world are still struggling with the impacts of the COVID pandemic. Beyond the over 1 million worldwide deaths, we're experiencing a global economic crisis. The IMF estimates that all the progress in addressing poverty made in Africa over the past 10 years could be wiped out in the next 12 months. At the same time that we're seeing these extraordinary economic challenges, we've seen concerted attempts to undermine the very foundations of modern democracies. When we add all this to the concerns many of us already have around environmental damage and the impacts of climate change, or the global growing disparity in wealth, building a better world seems like an insurmountable task. And that individual sense of feeling overwhelmed can often infiltrate our work and the work of our organizations. But I believe it's exactly in those moments that we see even more clearly that the path to a better world is best achieved through efforts that favor a collective impact approach. In their seminal article from the November 2011 issue of SSIR, authors John Kania and Mark Kramer famously outlined the 5 conditions that are necessary for a collective impact solution. Later this morning, my colleague and friend Eric Nee, editor-in-chief of SSIR, will speak more about these conditions and current trends in collective impact. But for a moment, let me touch upon 3 that I feel are not only vital in order to build a better world, but are in themselves indicative of that better world. Before we can work towards a better future, we need to come to a mutual understanding of what that better future is, the common agenda that Kania and Kramer cite. As they write, collective impact requires all participants to have a shared vision for change, one that includes a common understanding of the problem and a joint approach to solving it through agreed upon actions. Every participant need not agree with every other participant on all dimensions of the problem, but all participants must agree on the primary goals. When I think of a better future, it's this sort of shared vision for change that I think is the starting point. The UN SDGs are an example of this approach, but the UN reports minimal progress in the past 5 years and ongoing funding shortfalls. Does this mean that the spirit of collective impact behind the SDGs has failed? I'd say not. While individual countries may not be living up to the vision of the SDGs, the idea that global problems require a coordinated global approach is indisputable. Collective impact initiatives also depend on a diverse group of stakeholders working together. This doesn't mean that all participants do the same thing, but that each participant undertakes the specific set of activities at which it excels in a way that supports and is coordinated with the actions of others, Kania's and Kramer's mutually reinforcing activities. John and Mark say that the power of collective action comes not from the sheer number of participants or the uniformity of their actions, but from the coordination of their activities. The multiple causes of social problems and the components of their solutions are interdependent. They cannot be addressed by uncoordinated actions among isolated organizations. Leaning into our strengths as individuals and groups, as private sector businesses or government agencies or social sector organizations, as old power centralized authorities or new power distributed self-organizing networks means there is a place for all of us to affect change towards this better future. But I'd say that continuing communication is perhaps the most important element of the 5 fundamentals of collective impact. Communication is not a simple or easy task, but once stakeholders are engaged in this process of knowledge sharing, they often find great rewards. I believe that knowledge sharing is the ethos behind conferences such as this one, as well as the philosophy behind SSIR's growing roster of local language editions, not only SSIR Korea or SSIR China, but our newest partners, SSIR Japan, Espanol, and Arabic. And while this SSIR family may not be the traditional backbone organization that Mark and John describe, I think we do meet some of the criteria of adaptive leadership such organizations need, most notably, the ability to focus people's attention on an issue and the competence to frame issues in a way that presents opportunities as well as difficulties. It'd be easy to look at the seemingly constant and growing stream of challenges we face and be disheartened. But I don't think people who work to address social issues or pursue social innovation are by nature pessimists. And I also don't think we're foolish or unrealistic. We realize that we must work in a systemic, measurable, scalable way to create the better world we envision, and that this work is our shared collective responsibility. And I believe that collective impact approaches are both the best orientation for that shared outcome we desire and the best reflection of that process. Once again, thank you all for allowing me to speak and for being a part of this convening. I hope you find the rest of the day informative and inspirational, and that you take what you learn back and share it with your organizations.